Oh,
You
I
look
am.
fine.
Okay.
All right. Welcome. Let me turn it back on my computer. And unfreeze it. All right. Thank you for attending. I appreciate it. I hope you learned some information that might help you for PBL. This is called Unleashing the Power of PBL, Learning That Lasts. As most of you know, but you may not know all of this, I am Sabrina Rangel. I've been a teacher going into 28 years of teaching. My first 22 years was in elementary, mostly 5th grade science. And then I got to a point where I didn't want to teach anything but science, so I got my middle school certification and moved up to 8th grade at Nolan, Old Nolan, and then moved over here. So I've been here now for the 4 years that we've been open, teaching STEM. One of the expectations in the STEM program is teaching with PBL. And so when I went in to get my doctorate program, the university that I found has a PBL endorsement. And so this is my 3rd class now. It's my practicum for PBL. So one of the requirements is that I perform a professional development class to give you information about PBLs. Let me see. Okay, so by the end of this PD, you'll be able to define project-based learning, distinguish between PBL projects and traditional or dessert projects, describe the 7 gold standards of PBL, and reflect on where PBL may be incorporated into your curriculum. Can you all see that okay?
Actually, can you split the lights in here so there's
Of
not
course.
lights on the...
Yeah, that lights. Better? Okay. All right. So we're going to start off with the think, pair, share. So take a moment just to think, what do you think of when you hear the term project-based learning or PBL? So give you a few seconds to think about that. As bad as the kids.
Yes, nobody's
We're
thinking.
thinking.
The wheels are turning.
Okay, so now, since there's just 4, if you want to share just all together with each other, or you can split into 2 groups, okay, because we're also going to share out. So share with a partner what you thought, what you think of when you hear the term PBL.
I'm frequently reminded of a phrase my father, or a term my father would like to use, which is life is not a test, it's a term paper. And now I just mentally sub in life is not a test, it's a PBL. Because I do think there's more authentic opportunities in a PBL.
It's more
Because it is this process of PBL, not just drawing a project at the end, but the process of PBL has got more for authenticity. But I do think, I do sometimes wonder, like, because one of the big things that I've heard in the past trainings is like, oh, projects are memorable. Don't you remember your projects? And I'm like, do I remember them because they were memorable experiences or because they were standout experiences? If we swap over to a PBL-based method all the time, will some of the power of that fade?
I think I understand what you're trying to say. I also think that when it comes to learning, that students learn through memorable experiences, and PBL, since they are the ones doing the task, the learning task, and doing the research, preparing whatever project they need to prepare, that will help them remember the learning objective. I also think that, at least for science, we're changing to the new standards next year. They can use the engineering design process, which is what we use for STEM, just make sure that's what she does before we even try to change to this way of teaching. That really is, useful for that type of project, but I also think that there should be product. I also think that we cannot just do one thing, like you were saying, that the kids get bored with that. And then in science we do labs and we do PBLs and we do different things.
Would anyone want to share out what you said with your partner? I think we all heard Ms. Garcia, so thank you for sharing, Ms.
Cause I
Garcia.
took too long.
No.
Would anyone else like to share something that you shared with when you hear the term project-based learning or PBL?
What we learned is the group process and learning as a group and having a problem and then working through that problem as a group.
Anyone else?
And I just said it's for learning usually. Like instead of learning, it's for learning. Usually they are learning through that process of going back and reflecting and refining and thinking, and it's like deep thought and
Right.
that sort of thing.
All right, thank you. Y'all are spot on right there, actually. Okay. All right, a quote that I've heard: "Give the pupils something to do, not something to learn, and the doing is of such a nature as to demand thinking." And that was John Dewey. All right, so project-based learning it's a powerful teaching method. Just like some of you said, it brings in that authenticity, and bringing in authenticity ups the engagement level, because now students see a purpose behind what they're learning. So it becomes, they're actively engaging in real world stuff. They're doing the things that the experts are doing at their level. They're seeing, just what astronauts do, or mathematicians do, or writers do through the realm of PBL. They gain their knowledge and skills over an extended period of time. It's not just day by day by day. Everything comes in long term. They have those complex questions in their problems or changes. Sometimes it's a question, sometimes it's a problem. Okay, but you start off the PBL with something that gets them hooked and interested in it. So it does motivate those students. I know that with the PBLs that we've done this year, a lot of our unmotivated students become a lot more motivated when they're working in a PBL situation, when it's more hands-on, when it's something that's really gotten their attention. It does prepare students for their college and career readiness. If you've heard of the term 21st century skills, okay, those are skills such as the four C's, okay, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication. And then you have the literacy skills: information, media, and technology literacy. Or the 5 skills, which sometimes you see as flips: the flexibility, leadership, initiative, productivity, social skills. All of these are skills you have to have when you're going into the job world. Regardless of where you're going, any job you are required to have these kinds of skills. More and more people are actually looking for people who have these skills over, per se, someone who has a college education. I know Elon Musk is one that he's going to hire you with, if you come in with these skills, before he looks at your college. He wants to know, can you get along with people? Can you think innovatively? Can you think outside the box? Do you have some time management? So more and more people are starting to look at those skills, life skills, more so than just a college degree. And some people think that, they're doing projects, they're not going to be prepared for the test. That's not always true. You are still teaching your standards. You even may still have to have mini workshops. You may have to have a day of notes. You may have to have a day where they're doing independent work. That's built into the PBL. It's not group work every day, every day, every day. You can either do whole group, you could do small group. You could pull in mini workshops. Like if they have different roles. I need all of my secretaries of defense. That's one of our PBLs I'm doing right now. I need all of you over here. We're going to have a short mini workshop. The rest of you continue working on what you're working on. Okay, and then have that mini workshop with them. Or maybe you have those struggling students who need a little extra in a standard, and you pull them small group while the rest of the groups are still continuing through their PBL, and have a little workshop with them. Okay, and then there's other times where you just need the whole class because it's a new thing or everyone's struggling with it. It also allows you to teach in a more satisfying way instead of just standing up here chatting and talking and talking and talking and talking. You become more of the facilitator. And communication, it really brings in that connection with parents and community. If you do the PBL, especially following the gold standards that we're going to go through, public product is important, and bringing in a community member is important. So when I did our unit on space, I had a guest speaker that came in with my STEM students, and it was one of our students' dads who works at SpaceX. And so he was able to come in for 2 class periods and give a talk to the students about job opportunities through SpaceX. He talked to them about what it's all about. He answered lots of questions, and he really made that career connection with them. He's like, you could do just about anything at SpaceX, even cooks. Because they're housed within, and so they want their people to leave. They don't want their people to leave, so they have cooks within. That everything is done there. They don't have to go out and about. So bringing it, and then you have a public product too, where a community can come in and see their work, and that's something we've done that as well. So something toward the difference between a project and a project-based learning. Okay, so just like Ms. Usher said, project-based learning is a project for learning, where a project by itself is of learning. It's usually at the end. You go through all this learning, and now show me what you learned through this project. That's the traditional way. Okay, most of the time they can be done alone. It's more about the product rather than the process, and it's more about the product rather than what they're learning. It's teacher directed, whereas your project base is very student led. A lot of the decisions are made by the students, and this teacher is just the facilitator. Right now, I'm not doing a whole lot except helping, walking around. What do you need? Okay, you might want to think about this for your city. I'm not communicating. I'm not really even teaching. I'll give a 5-minute talk at the beginning, and then I'm pretty much done, except for facilitating and answering questions and helping along the way. Now that is also when students, this is the end of the year, so students they've done several PBLs. At the beginning, when you're first starting, you might have a little more control over it. You might need to guide them in the correct way to do it. And then the more you do it, the more you can start to let go and step out of the picture. And then they really start to run with it. The projects lack that real world context, okay, where the PBL is based on real world experiences. Your driving question is something that's real world, something that connects to the student, that's connected to their community or the world itself.
Ms. Moreno, please hurry and call the front office. Thank you.
Please hurry. Okay, as I said, projects are usually after the learning, where PBLs, the learning occurs through the whole project. And when you're doing a regular PBL, typically everyone is completing the same thing. Everyone complete a storyboard. Everyone has to, that's their goal. Where in PBL, there's a lot of choice. Choice is very important in PBLs. So some may choose a storyboard, while others may do something different, while others do something different. And then you see a good amount of choice in their presentations. Okay, so here's an example of traditional units, okay, versus project-based. So traditional, you have a lecture, an activity, and then a quiz. And then you have a lecture, and then you have an activity, and then you have a quiz. And that's very traditional. Okay, and then you have your exam, and then you have your project. Or you might have your project and then your exam. Where with PBL, you start it off where you're doing some surface level learning. This is where you might have some workshops. You still can have a lecture. They're still going to have homework. They're going to do some science labs, okay, or writing academies, or whatever you need to do. Then you'd have a benchmark to check their learning on at the surface level. And then they always take time to reflect. And then you go into your deep level. You take your learning and you go deeper with it. And then you benchmark it and reflect. And now you go into the transfer. Now they're taking those skills and applying it into different ways. And then they come together and they present it in some way. Sorry, let me get a drink.
If you want, while you drink water, I'll say this.
Mhm.
Basically, PBL is going deeper into that, the pyramid of learning, where you are not at the surface,
Right.
understanding, describing, you are now analyzing and creating, which is
Correct.
deeper
Right.
knowledge.
You're going down into the fourth level of rigor. So there are a few misconceptions when it comes to PBLs. Some people might say that PBL is not rigorous. Okay, but it can be designed to align with any core content, any skill of any subject and any grade level, from kindergarten through college. I have 2 college classmates who did PBL with their college students, and the college students loved it. It was so much different than the professor standing up there lecturing. It's much easier to incorporate those higher order thinking skills, problem solving, and metacognition, especially when you build in that reflection piece. That is so important. You can assess them in multiple ways, not just a sit-down test, but they might create, you have all the different types of projects. You grade them through rubrics. I even grade their self-reflections, okay? And you can keep portfolios. It raises the bar because they're now applying their knowledge and skills. They're not just showing that they've learned something, but they're putting it into context. And this was a research finding that I had thought was really fascinating. While PBL has shown a relatively low effect on student achievement at the surface level, PBL has shown substantial yields when students are prepared for transfer level work. And that's what our state test is. It's giving them different scenarios, but using the knowledge they've learned in class. So PBLs really do bring in that higher level thinking. And okay, I've learned this. Now I'm going to apply it in here in my project. But then on the test, oh, this is a different way of thinking. Okay, wait. What did I do in my project? What did they do in their project? Now I can put it together and see it in a different way. Second myth is that they're for the brightest students. I've heard that a lot. But it benefits all students. You just have to make sure you tailor it to all students' needs. Okay, you can't have a one-shot PBL and expect everyone to learn. You do have to have those scaffolding opportunities for the low students and even to the high students so that they can keep moving higher. It's a really good opportunity for students who struggle with standardized assessments because it gives them more choice in how they show their learning. And again, it can be scaffolded for all levels. A third myth is, especially in this general area, PBL is only for STEM. I've heard that too. But as we said before, it can be integrated into any subject and any discipline. And a lot of times it's really nice when they're you're working with other teachers through disciplines, or even in your own classroom. When we did our solar system universe project, I embedded ELA content into mine because we worked with persuasion. But it wasn't one I worked with Ms. Richardson on. For that one, it was one I incorporated it in my science classroom. So they were doing ELA and science together because I made sure to embed those ELA standards. I just said that, interdisciplinary. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Okay, connect and synthesize concepts from different subjects. It makes them understand that school is important. Every subject is important and every subject is tied together. Because in the real world, you don't go into a job and just do math and nothing but math. Okay, there are other elements that you have to bring in too. Maybe accounting, they do math all the time. But most jobs you're building in all skills, not just a single subject, and they need to understand that. Was it with you or Miss Bing? They were talking about something, and I was like, we've already done it. It was you, sustainability. Mm-hmm. So she started talking about sustainability in ELA, and all of a sudden they don't know what it means. It's like we've just been talking about it like an entire unit ago. We did a whole unit on it. So getting that connection from one classroom to the next, that's a bridge that needs to be built. So they can talk about science concepts in ELA and not forget it because they're not in the science classroom.
Mm-hmm. It happens this year for us with the 6th graders, maps and plate tectonics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. PBL is the same as doing projects, and we've already discussed that. It's not an add-on, it's not a supplement, It's learning through the project, and it's the main vehicle. It is student-driven, not teacher-driven. It's focused, it's not focused on that final product because they're using what they've learned and creating that product as they go. And it's not a discrete or isolated activity. It's a continuous and integrated experience. All right, so the 7 standards. Let's see what we have, about 10 minutes compared to when we started? 5 minutes, 6 minutes? What do y'all think? Not exactly sure when we started.
I put 404 on the student pass that I wrote literally before coming here,
Okay,
and then Miss Azelle walked in like literally
right after
less
that.
than a minute. So I'd say we probably started around 406.
Okay, so we've got about,
Also look at the recording.
Yeah, I know.
Was the
we've
time.
got about 7 minutes or so. So I'm gonna fly through these. There are 7 standards. This is called the gold standard PBL, and if you've heard of PBL Works, this is what they base theirs on. All of their PBLs are based on these 7 gold standards. Okay, so the first thing you start with is a challenging problem or question. This is what provides that structure, and you come back to that problem or question throughout the entire PBL. It is the driving force as to what it is. Everything you do builds toward that driving question. It's not a question they can go Google. It's much deeper than that. It requires time and not just a couple of days. It requires a lot of work to come to that answer to that driving question. What I have here is a way to do a cross-curricular. So a driving question, how can we explore the standing water issue around the school to develop a sustainable watershed proposal to the school board using 3D models in a Canva presentation? Okay, so I know 7th grade has been working with watersheds. That's why I like, oh, that sounds interesting. So a science question, why are watersheds important for our region? Making it connected to the community. Geography, where does the water from streets and parking lots go? ELA, how can I communicate the problem in a factual but interesting way? And math, how does the distance between the school and the creek affect water drainage? So now, and it doesn't mean you have to have it throughout all classes, but you're hitting these different concepts and disciplines within your classroom if you can't do cross-curricular. The second one is that sustained inquiry. Your driving question, just like I said, takes time to answer. So you want it to be so interesting that their inquiry is just going. And then if you start to see it wane, you add in another something to get them more interested. You keep them going in that inquiry. They need time to solve, and they will go through developmental phases and emotional ups and downs. That's part of it because that's what real world is all about. And so they need to learn how to manage that up and down situation, but they can't manage that if they're not put in that situation. And they need that productive struggle and learn how to work through that by themselves and with their group. You know, they have to learn how to work with several people, whether they like them or not. Authenticity is huge. I misspelled that word. Okay. Authenticity is something that Ms. Richardson brought up when she was talking. When you make it as real as possible and they see that reason why they're learning it, you don't get that, why are we learning this? Okay, they know, because they could see. You actually have to use what you're learning in this situation and in this situation, and you're not just learning it because you have to. You're learning it because it'll help you in the end. So you can learn through context, like designing and creating restaurant menus. You can learn through tasks and tools, like preparing budgets or designing websites. You can learn through making an impact on the world, how to redesign a school playground. Excuse the misspelled words. I'm sorry about that. And then, or even through a personal connection, projects that bring the neighboring community into the school. Our bioscience project that we did through science, I think, was big on that because it was all about human impact on the environment and how what we're doing is destroying them, but we can help them too. And they were very invested into that PBL. And then getting to have the public come in and see their work was just, they were really thought that was powerful.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
The kids were engaged, the ones I didn't normally would see engaged, and it was like, wow.
You actually do some
Yeah,
work.
and even
Mhm.
some
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
ones
yeah.
you don't expect.
I didn't expect
Yes.
it, and they were like on it. It was pretty cool.
Student voice and choice. They must have some choices, and they must be able to voice their ideas. Okay. They need to have that freedom to act and to reflect. The teacher steps back and allows those choices to happen, and they are able to make those decisions. Because you can't, it says here, training ground to encourage self-motivated students who can make logical, intelligent choices in their lives. If they're not able to make choices in their lives, then they're not going to be able to make good choices when they're adults. And so it is that training ground. Reflection is extremely important. John Dewey, we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. So I've been really focused on building in more and more reflection time, getting them to think about their thinking, about themselves, how to make themselves better, how to make the work better, and everything. Doing lots of reflection. And it keeps them on track, and it also helps them to track their progress as they're going. And then critique and revision. This one I'm struggling with. I've been finding the time, and I should be making the time. But this is very important to have other people come in and look at their work, give critique, positive and constructive. And then they learn how to do that, but they also learn how to take it. And that's a hard one for our middle schoolers. They don't know how to take the criticism. They take it personally instead of, I just want you to make it better. So that's something that we definitely need to build in time for, so they get that critique, they have time to revise, and then they get some more critique and they have time to revise till it's it's
Make
really good.
adjustments, yeah.
Huh?
Make adjustments to,
Right.
depending on what it is.
Exactly. And then the last thing is that public product. So when we did the space one, the public product was when the guest speaker came in, that he came in and they presented their work to him. And they were really excited. Every one of them wanted him to see their work. They did not have time to get to show it, but I tried to make sure I got into like 4 or 5 groups in each class, maybe more. They were really excited. And then of course our parent night, they were really excited about that. They don't want to look bad in front of public. So you're going to get that more students are going to put in more effort when they know that other people are going to see it. I know our NASA people doing our NASA thing are really excited about the thought of turning their posters into NASA.
Yeah.
I kind of been talking about my PBLs already, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. So for our last piece, okay, so just a couple of reflection. Think about how can PBL be incorporated into your curriculum, science, ELA, and tech apps. And then I want you to think about a particular unit of instruction that poses significant challenges for your students. Think about that one unit that you're always going, man, they always struggle here. And put that into your mind. Okay, anyone want to share that difficult unit?
I'll do mine.
Okay.
It's more of they're uncomfortable. We have a unit that we're doing sex and relationships
Mm-hmm.
and trying to build on of like what exactly is it, what it looks like, and then how the impacts could have.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a little embarrassed at first, but then it's kind of like, okay, we still have to talk about it because it happens.
Right.
And that real world tying into bullying behaviors
Right.
and online digital citizenship and trying to tie that into it as well, so they don't think there's an issue
Mm-hmm.
because it's not sometimes in their face. So it's a little bit challenging to
Right.
get them to acknowledge that there's an issue.
Mhm.
So
Is there, so the idea then is to kind of think of, is there a way that a PBL could bring in some authenticity to
I
this
think it could.
to make it more understandable and real world and a little less embarrassing to talk
I
about?
think it could. Or because that's one of the ones I was like, that would be a great one for that one.
Mhm.
Just tailored of like how to bring the other aspects and other units that we've been talking as a whole.
Right.
I think it'd be a great idea. I just already thinking, I was like, oh, I want to do that one.
All right. So something to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone else?
I think, because I've been thinking about it, the PBL process a lot lately.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could point out a unit that's like, that's the unit that they struggle in, because
Mhm.
that would be all the units in English sometimes, it feels like. But what I think a big part of it is the cyclical skills of English. It's like, I always end up going back to like author's purpose or inferencing or tone and mood.
Mhm.
And sometimes it feels like we finish, it's like we do our fiction unit and we're talking about the exact same thing,
Mhm.
but now we're talking about poetry, and it's like they didn't even need to move classrooms to forget, like literally last week we were talking about this same concept, let's
Right.
apply it to a new thing. And I think that is what would be one of the benefits of PBL in the English space.
Mhm.
Is I'll be honest, because I've been thinking a lot about how do we make an authentic product in English, I say that back, I've been thinking about how do you make a hands-on product in English, and throughout this lecture I was like, you know what, I think I've been thinking about it wrong.
Mhm.
I think it's not how do I make English hands-on, because English is reading and writing, it's how do I make English authentic.
Right.
But how do I make how do I make that an authentic product?
Mhm.
And I think with more of that, there's more of an opportunity to see how those skills are applying.
Mhm.
And then, you'd only need to go through like 2 rotations of it before, maybe we'd hold on to some of those skills.
Right.
I have just something that I thought of, maybe writing a screenplay and then doing the presenting, or that would be too much.
I don't think it would be too much, in fact, but I think it's the spaces. We try to cram a lot. I could, any unit in my English class, I could spend the entire
Everywhere.
year on
Mhm.
by itself. And so we get such a tiny space for drama. And I have a background in drama, and so I know that write a script and perform a script, that's your semester right there at least.
Wow.
And that would be an authentic way to bring some English skills in. And I think the STEM, not STEAM,
Mhm.
it's like the arts. We can tie English into the more overtly art things and get those hands-on projects, but I'm not sure the time. And honestly, don't get me wrong, I love the art in English language arts, but that's not the skill the majority of them carry into the real world. It's the English language skills.
Right.
And so what are the authentic skills in English? Because I also rally is not the right word, rail against the loss of art out of English class. Like I knew an English teacher that was like, her whole curriculum was about business, right? Like everything, she pulled it back to business writing. And I was like, not all these people are mini entrepreneurs, but I was also like, capitalism invades all of our society. There's so little, the bastion of the arts is so small. But seeking a balance, I think, between those artistic skills and where can I still keep them in, and those are some of the places where I can keep hands-on. And also the real world skill that you learn in my class is how to write an email, how to write professionally, how to write formally, how to write persuasively, how to communicate. But those are things that could be authentic, I think. That
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
monopolizing.
good.
All right. For
Thank
time
you.
purposes, because I know some of you don't have places to go.
Thank you.
That was great.
That
Thank
was
you
really
very
good.
much.
Thank you.
And if at any point, if you have more questions or you want ideas, feel free to ask. We can always, ask each other as well. I will have some kind of a survey or something, reflective piece coming to you in the next few days, just to, after a few days of thinking about it. So I can watch for that in your email.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.